Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic on this Monday, and we have a fantastic, I use fantastic too many times, but it's worthy on this Monday. A great episode in store. I did some deep dive into some JMU men's basketball stats, and what I found was quite eye-boggling, and I'm excited to dive into that with you later and kind of try and dissect, armchair coach it up of what we think maybe the potential issues are for JMU men's basketball as they sit 3-2 in Sunbelt play. And in just a few minutes, we have Phoenix Sproles, JMU wide receiver, coming on the podcast, talk with us about his NFL draft process, what he's doing to get ready for the NFL draft, and kind of his experience playing with JMU this past season as well. But Bennett, we had a great weekend in Harrisonburg despite the L.
Fun atmosphere in Harrisonburg for the weekend. Students weren't back, but they still had like 7,700 fans. So heck of a showing from the community.
Yeah, I believe it was the third largest attended game in the AUBC, in the AUBC's young history. And that was louder than UVA.
I thought so. It was very loud in the first half, which I was not expecting of the Dukes. Started very slowly, had a chance late.
Very slowly.
Couldn't get it done. We got some great beer afterward at Three Notched, and I love them. We missed out on sort of all their promotions, right? They got Minuteman Mondays, $3 pours, didn't have that. Tuesdays, half off cases. We weren't there for that. And we missed First Tap Friday. But hey, the beer's pretty good every day of the week, including Saturday.
Yeah, I got their new beers resolution, which was a dark saison brewed over golden raisins, checked in at 8.6%. Did not taste like 8.6, like went smooth. I probably had one too many, and but they were going down like water. They were absolutely delicious, and they were a good way to kind of mask the pain of the loss. And another way to mask the pain of a JMU men's basketball loss is by visiting our friends both in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
Confirmed, glamorous and laid back. We did get into a bit of a debate over the weekend whether it was luxurious and laid back, but it is confirmed glamorous.
That's a huge win for me.
That's the biggest win of the weekend for you, right? Nothing else happened that's like big in your life over the weekend?
Both of those were big.
What was the second one?
The second one, of course, be Dan Campbell and the boys getting it done over Matthew Stafford. Dinged him up a little bit, but Stafford battled through. Just a gritty performance from him. A lot of people are saying it's probably the most impressive win of the playoffs. The Lions getting it done against a Rams team that a lot of people thought were going to win the Super Bowl.
I mean, it was the best game of the NFL playoffs. The spread indicated that, and it lived up to the hype. And you can bet on all of those things with our friends over at Bet Online. NFL playoffs are here, and the NBA season is in full swing. And BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores, with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information at any time. Head there today to get in on the action and see every single updated odd. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, that's promo code BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. You could bet, the under in tonight's Tampa Bay Philly game. It kicks off here in just about an hour and a half. You can bet the Tampa Bay Buccaneers money line plus 125 like I did. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, none of that applies to you because you're listening to this on Tuesday after the games. But you can bet all the divisional round lines and markets with Bet Online because it is where the game starts. That may have been the best Bet Online read we've had.
That was pretty good. Proud of that.
That was good. So we're going to dive into JMU football today a little bit. We're going to talk with Phoenix Sproles, like we said. going to dive into a little bit of expectations around Dylan Morris and this team leading into 2024, and look at a couple key upcoming dates in the transfer portal, and then we'll change gears, head on over the hardwood, and talk all things basketball. But before Phoenix joins us, Bennett, are you excited for Dylan Morris, the JMU Experience to come?
I think it'll be exciting. Yeah, you did a great breakdown on our YouTube, and looks like a talented pocket passing quarterback that should fit well within the scheme. I think interesting today, Matt Sluka from Holy Cross, I believe, committed, or at least there was the news that he's planning to transfer to UNLV. So group of 5, which does make it seem like the Dukes probably could have had him if they wanted. But I don't know if he has like a big UNLV connection, but it's one where I assume they really like Morris and feel like he's a great fit over some other guys in the portal, maybe even including Sluka.
Yeah, kind of interesting, because what Dean Kennedy has won year as an offensive coordinator was that QB power run style, but he did a lot of his graduate stuff with Kyle Trask and was in the SEC running non-power runs. And we even look at Chesney. It was a pro style kind of offense with Assumption College, and had to change gears with Sluka the last couple of years. But maybe JMU is who they targeted going into it. And it should be a big time pickup that fits well into what Chesney did earlier in his career, and in theory fits well with what Dean Kennedy did with the likes of Kyle Trask and Florida QBs. I believe he was also at Mississippi State as well.
I think so.
So some SEC guys that aren't necessarily the Sluka types. I had another point I was going to, and still I'm a little worried that the music is about to stop on musical chairs for this quarterback portal season, and Jordan McLeod is going to be left on the outside looking in.
Yeah, interested there. Interested in, I don't know if they're going to make Chesney available early in not early in anything, but in the next couple of weeks. I think Signetti last year did like a January 20th post-portal 20-plus minute interview. I don't know if they're planning that again. That would be interesting to hear. And then if there are any other transfers that maybe didn't announce very publicly that came in, I don't know if that's the case or not, or what they're going to do, because they do have a few scholarships. They didn't do anything at defensive back in the portal, which was very surprising to me.
I'm very surprised by it too. It feels like, I don't think they're running it back with what might be Jacob Thomas, Jordan Brown, my bad. Jacob Thomas back there with maybe DJ Barksdale.
I don't know. Yeah. And then you've got obviously Pons and Logan, you probably like at corner, but
yeah,
behind them, there's a lot of like guys who were at the Power 5 level that didn't really play.
Yeah, you got Nakai Meredith, Antoine Booth,
Mullins,
Mullins. Yeah, I feel like we mention those guys every season, and we're like, watch out for them. And they haven't cracked it too deep, but this might be their time. They might slot back at safety. But we'll take a quick step away from talking JMU transfer portal. We'll dive into it a little bit deeper later in the podcast. But for now, we're joined by Phoenix Sproles, JMU wide receiver, former North Dakota State Bison, but finished out his collegiate career with the Dukes. Phoenix, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. And as your collegiate career is wrapped up, you're now preparing for the NFL draft. Can you kind of take us through what that preparation's like, and how things are going now post-grad?
Yeah, I mean, so far it's been really good. We just got done with our first week down here in Delray Beach, a little bit in Boca Raton as well. Weather's been good. Can't complain. I heard it's really cold. I heard it snowed in Harrisonburg the other day. So I'm kind of happy I'm not there right now. But man, it's been fun. Week 1 was all kind of pre-test. So like your vertical, your broad jump, bench press, shuttle, or 5-10-5, whatever you want to call it, L drill. I think we're doing our 40s this week. But getting all those pre-test numbers in, and then building that foundation to, get started, and that's what this week's for. This will be our first official week besides last week, which was testing. And it's a 7:05 a.m. wake up, and I get back home around 3:40, 4 p.m. So it's like a job. It's what you have to do to get to where you want to go.
What's that process like of picking where you want to train? I guess what sent you down there? What were your connections like that made you, pick your training spot?
Yeah. So thankfully, I've been training with the guys that I'm training with right now since I was 13, 14. They're called Game Face. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and That training facility is based out of there in Minnesota. And these past couple of years, I've been doing combine prep down in Florida with Lifetime. And so it was an easy decision for me what I wanted to do. I wanted to trust the people I've been training with my whole life. And I've had other friends go through that process at Game Face as well, the training facility, and they had nothing but good things to say about it. And it was a no-brainer for me, so it was easy.
Yeah, as you're going through the process, are there any kind of like what are the benchmarks you're going through? Like, are you trying to get to your 40 a little faster? Are you trying to increase your your shuttle? Like, what is it that you're really focusing in on during this draft prep process?
Honestly, everything. There's always room for improvement. I don't think I'm perfect in any area. I can always jump higher, run faster, change direction more fluidly, change direction more fluidly. So I'm every drill we're doing, I'm going 100%. So I know I want to get the best numbers possible for pro day. So yeah, but I think the 40 obviously is everyone's go-to. They want to wow everyone with the 40. So that's definitely in my mind. That's like something I definitely want to prove. Because I know a lot of people are probably wondering how fast is he, and I'm gonna show that at pro day.
I mean, it might not matter that much. Puka Nakua, what he ran like a 4.9 this year, and
Yeah,
he's showing that
yeah,
out there. But
yeah, definitely. So that's one thing. That's another big thing. Obviously the teams want to see a fast 40, but at the end of the day, it's about your production. What can you do with what you got? And Puka, he had the best receiving yards for I don't even know what the stat was, but he had the best receiving yards in the season. So it's all about production. What can you do when the ball's in your hand, and how consistent can you be?
Awesome. How would you assess, I guess, this last year at JMU? I think you said in some interviews when you came in, part of the reason was trying to prepare yourself for the NFL. What's it like to be in an offense where you've got a lot of receivers who are capable of getting the ball, and you're also trying to get sort of those, I guess, individual production for yourself for the next level? How do you balance, I guess, being a great teammate and then also trying to go get yours when you're out there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone wants to be the guy, but at the end of the day, it's all about the team. Everyone contributes in their own way, and in the NFL, you have guys that are world class football players that are the number 2, number 3, number 4 receivers that still do their part. And if that's my role at the next level, cool. If my role is to be the guy, cool. Either way, I'm gonna be okay with it. However it shakes out. I just want to get to my goal, which is the NFL, obviously the highest level, and showcase what I can do as a football player. And if that is the number 1 receiver, and that's how the offense, that's how it fits, perfect. And if I have to be the 2 or the 3, perfect. I can do that too.
Yeah, and kind of switching gears over to more of your JMU experience during your time in Harrisonburg, you seem to really find the stride later on in the season. I believe 20 catches or something in the final 2 games, but overall, kind of that final stretch, you really found that groove in the offense. What was the season like as you went through? Was it Reggie was balling out to start, and there was a little Elijah, and then you kind of found the role there, or was it just kind of how the offense came to you as the year went on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never that guy that's going to demand the ball. None of us receivers did. None of us demanded, oh, I need these many targets. It's just kind of how the offense shook up. And I do my part whenever the ball came my way. Whatever, if it was coming across the middle, running a bubble, getting extra yards, whatever it may be. And that's kind of like how we all kind of fit in this offense this year. You had Elijah and Reggie, 2 1,000-yard guys, and then my almost 500 yards. That was a big part too. It might not jump out, but like the plays that I did have, they were big plays that contributed in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, no, I mean, I love playing with those dudes, and I wouldn't change how that season went for anything. You can't always have the numbers you want, but at the end of the day, I got to contribute to 11-2 or 10-2 season, first JMU bowl game. So there's a lot of good things that came from it.
What was it like working with Jordan this year? I know you two were roommates. How did you sort of develop that chemistry on the field, off the field? It certainly seemed like one that on the field at least was pretty strong by season's end.
Yeah, just being around each other. Obviously, you're what were we, 6 year guys. We kind of just we got to do this all over another year. Like 6 years in college is a long time, especially doing college football. And I think that's kind of what brought our bond closer, was just the fact that like we're the older guys on the team, and it's mentally it's a lot. You're going through another fall camp, another spring ball. I think it was my fourth or fifth fall, I don't even know, fall camp. And those definitely drain you. But we stayed close. Worked in the summer and the off season. Worked in the obviously during spring ball, and then when the season came, it was just time to showcase what we could do. And he found me a lot more towards later on in the season, and now he's training right now, and he's. I think it was just a perfect kind of like a happy ending to a story. We both got what we wanted. I got opportunity to show what I could do, and obviously he balled out and got to show what he could do.
Yeah, you mentioned 6 years, and I don't if you're not able to, if you don't know or something like that, but we've just been a little curious with Jordan potentially going into his 7th year. Is he gearing up to find a home for 2024? Are you able to speak on that at all, or
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
that's a lot?
yeah. No, it's yeah. I know he's definitely doing a 7th year. I don't know where. I just called him the other day. He's got options lined up, but he's actually working with a quarterback coach, getting everything fine tuned and ready for his 7th year. I think he's either down in, he's from Tampa. I don't know if he's somewhere else down in Florida, or he might be, um, it might be Tampa. No, yeah, he lives in Tampa. Could be Miami or Fort Lauderdale. I don't know, but he's training somewhere, getting ready for his 7th year, and hopefully soon he comes out with something, because I'm curious too. Because I keep texting him. Yeah, I guess he's trying to. Just hold off on it a little bit longer. But now wherever he ends up, it would be the right move for him.
Yeah, the portal season nowadays is
The
wild.
portal
I've
season.
experienced that a little bit, but yeah, it's crazy. I was curious. You had tweeted, I guess, a few weeks ago. You went through your whole 6-year career without any fumbles. I know you blocked a lot, receiving a few handoffs. I think JMU fans were on the wrong end of one of those at one point. But how would you, I guess, describe your game, and sort of when did you start liking the little aspects of being a receiver? Was that something that you always liked, like freshman year in college? You pride yourself on not fumbling. Is that something that developed over the years? When did you develop all those traits?
Yeah, man, I think it goes back. I gotta give a big credit, obviously to JMU, but to North Dakota State. I was there for 5 years, and man, the attention to detail was just it was top tier. It was right there at JMU. I know JMU. They every day we had almost every day we had some type of ball security drill. But at North Dakota State, I got to develop my skills early on in my career in college. Man, I just remember we did so many ball security, so many different types of ways to like jump around on one leg and spin and like have someone punch at the ball with like a stick or something, and be able to hold on to the ball still. So I know that's really big there at North Dakota State, just doing little things right, holding on to the football, and then it ended up translating to JMU as well. They harped on those, Coach Cinetti and his staff harped on those things almost every day. Protect the ball. The ball's a program, and that's something I just pride myself in. Just you don't want to be that guy that turns the ball over from a silly mistake with not covering it. Obviously, things happen, but you know, I think holding on to the football is usually self-inflicted, and I'm blessed to say that I never fumbled in my college career. And going back to your other question about what kind of player I am, I think I'm just a consistent player that knows will know his assignment and will do everything possible to make sure I'm perfect on that assignment. Whether it's blocking, whether it's catching, whether it's running with the ball, whatever you want to say. I think I'm a consistent player that does the little things right, and it shows.
That's an insane stat. No fumbles. That's impressive.
It is. I appreciate it.
Looking back at this last year with JMU, are there any kind of big moments that you'll remember going on past your JMU career? Like, what is a memory from this past season that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch, but I think that ones that can come to my head right now is obviously the University of Virginia game. That was just a huge game, kind of like really like a standpoint in our season. Like, okay, JMU's a team to reckon with. Playing a Power Five team, in-state in-state team, getting it done away. Everything was stacked up against us. We were down a little bit as well. Came back in the rain, and got to finish it. Just show what kind of team we were, what type of grit we had as a team. And then so that was one of them. And the second one was kind of a personal one, but the Armed Forces Bowl. I felt like, going out. Obviously, the goal is to win the game. That's always the main thing. We fell short of that. But me personally, I think just I couldn't go out personally as a receiver. I think I had one of my best games just overall, and it happened to be in JMU's first ever bowl game, and it was just so many emotions, just being my last college football game and JMU's first bowl game, and just got to showcase what I could do one last time.
What was that bowl prep like? I mean, from the outside looking in, it seemed like it was a whirlwind for you guys. You had an offensive line. Robo's a great coach, but you got an offensive line coach who's been with the offensive line all year. All of a sudden, the head coach, you're kind of figuring some things out. This guy from Lafayette from the 90s is now coaching some stuff in there too. Like, what was that bowl prep like?
It was honestly, obviously a little bit different, but it felt normal. Coach Robo did a tremendous job of keeping everything similar to how we practiced throughout the whole year. And so I give a big hats off to Coach Robo and the guys he brought in, his former coaches and players he played with, and I think he played with some of the guys as well, that came in to help basically just put away their lives for 3 to 4 weeks to come help out a college team play football. They could have easily just said no. They all came, stayed in Harrisonburg for four weeks, and helped us put our best foot forward for this bowl game. And like I said before, I give my hats off to Coach Robo, but hats off to that staff, and just the staff as a whole, all the GAs that stepped up and had to be almost full-time position coaches. And man, it was good. It wasn't hectic. It wasn't crazy. It felt like a normal practice. But yeah, just hats off to Coach Robo and the guys he brought in.
I was curious, quick one going back to the NFL. With Darren Sproles, I think your bio says your stepdad played with the Vikings. I guess growing up, what's it like to have those NFL connections? How does that sort of help you as you prepare to go into the league?
It's it's like an expectation. When you've seen or I've had 2 people in my family that have done it, it's like, okay, it's possible. It's not a dream. It's not something that's unachievable. Like, it can be done with hard work, dedication, and just consistency. And having 2 people in my family that have done it, it gave me that clarity. Like, if I do all the little things right, give everything I have, I'll have a decent to good shot at hopefully getting signed or getting drafted, whatever it may be, to the team.
That's awesome. And my last question before we let you go, you probably have the most insight on what this wide receiver room is going to be next year, because there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of potential there with Tajee Hudson, Dollison, I believe, Yamir Knight, Maxwell Moss. I'm probably leaving off a bunch of other guys too. But looking at that wide receiver room, what do you expect out of them in 2024? And is there any guy that you've kind of looked at and circled or in your mind you have high expectations for when you go back and you're watching JMU next year?
Yeah, man, it's going to be a very, very competitive room. There's so many guys that can start for JMU right now. A bunch of athletes and guys that are not even just athletes, but guys that are smart too. Like you mentioned, obviously Tajee, Yamir, and Max are the guys, and Amarion are probably the 3 or 4 guys that rotate a little bit with me, Reggie, and Elijah. And I expect nothing. I expect no step off from what me and Elijah and Reggie did. I expect them to do even better. Amarion, I think, is going to have whatever his role is. I think he's going to have a crazy season. That's just something that I just truly believe, the work he does and the type of athlete. I haven't seen an athlete like him personally. That dude can run. He's strong. He can catch. He can run routes. Like, he's like a prototype receiver. That's what you want. And then you have obviously Yamir Knight, who can also do it all in the slot. And then you have Tajee, who showed glimpses of what he can do this year, and he's only going to capitalize from that. And then obviously Maxwell Moss, just all guys that can play. And I'm excited. Like, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm excited to see how it's going to shake out, what's going to happen. But I'm still talking to those guys almost every other day, and just making sure everything's still good, like they're still in the right headspace, and which they are. And they're all just hungry. They want to work. There's basically three receiver spots that are open. All of us left technically. So it's go time for them.
You mentioned the UVA game being a big one for you. You caught a touchdown in that game, but not from Jordan. When was that play with Tajee installed? And I guess what was your reaction when it was called in the huddle and you knew it was coming your way?
Man. And it's actually crazy because Tajee was a former quarterback in high school, I believe. So, and we had trials. Coach, we put the plan on, I think, on Wednesday, but like before the season even started, and I think the week before UVA or before our first game of the season, I don't know. We just had Coach Shanahan, the receivers coach at the time, was just like, I need all the receivers up here. I just want to see you guys throw. And obviously, Taji had the natural arm, and then like that was it. He didn't say anything about it again. He was like, "Okay, Taji, you're the guy." And then 2-3 weeks later, we're doing a play where Taji's throwing the ball, and we knew the look that we had if they played a certain defense. I think they're in man. Um, it would be a perfect play because the guy came down. I was pretending to block down, and the guy pulled the trigger and pressed upfield. And I just obviously just ran an out route, and Taji hit me and touchdown.
Was anybody particularly bad in that wide receiver throwing drill? You have any guys throwing ducks out there for a little bit and quickly eliminated?
I was one of them for sure. Me. Who else can I put under the bus? I know Marion can't throw. He can't throw. Elijah was trash. Reggie didn't even try. And who else? There was someone else that was. Blake Barnes actually had a really good arm too. He was he just left the team. He was a senior that graduated. But Blake Barnes, he could throw. So honestly, it could have been him or Taji. But honestly, Blake could throw the ball a little bit.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that worked out because in the end, those points were very much needed. So always good when those plays work out. Ben, anything else?
I don't think so. Good luck with the draft prep. I know it's a long few months of prep, but good luck with everything. I think JMU fans are excited to see your future. I know North Dakota State fans are too.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys, man.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Phoenix.
Yep, thank you guys.
Good stuff.
Awesome insights there. Great question about who was the worst thrower.
I love that for Shanahan, just kind of like having him do the drill so you can throw and be like, all right,
thanks. Could you imagine like what's going through their mind? You're like, okay, what's happening? Coach is all calling us up to the 20, and then he just gives the ball and he's like, throw. And
nice
like, that's not what our role is, Coach. Now I'm excited to see Phoenix and what he does in his next step. I mean, him and Reggie both going to the NFL draft, and I think both have potential to make it onto a 53-man roster. Come, what would that be, September?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they're going to play, I think, professionally somewhere, right?
Yes.
So if it's ends up in a different league, but no, I think with Phoenix, his game was just so steady all year, and I think the fact that he like didn't get deterred. He goes for like 7 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown against UVA. Didn't have a catch against Troy, and then sort of just stays with it throughout the year and had a huge end of the season. I talked a lot about how every time he caught the ball, he like didn't waste yards. Very productive after the catch. I feel like he could definitely pick up somewhere given his game and speed and athleticism, all that stuff.
Yeah, and then finished the year with 11 catches against Coastal, 5 more against Air Force, 2 of those being touchdowns.
He just gets open a lot. Like it seems like if you put him in the correct scheme, like you're not necessarily like your wide receiver one, but a guy who could contribute and make some stuff happen. Was phenomenal in the Armed Forces Bowl, crushed Coastal along with Reggie and Surratt, right? All 3 of them just absolutely destroyed in that game.
Yeah, Mr. Leby says Armed Forces Bowl MVP. Yeah, he definitely was. And I mean, just I feel like the slot receiver role has been kind of changed a lot when you're talking about it with the NFL. Like you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is just an electric number 1 receiver that they play in the slot. CeeDee Lamb plays a lot out of the slot, things of that sort. But like you go back to like the Julian Edelmans and the Wes Welkers and the Grinders. I realized I named probably the 2 most. Never mind. But like that's what used to be like what a slot receiver is, and it still is. And I think Phoenix Sproles really is like the prototypical perfect slot receiver.
Yeah, just super productive. I'll be interested to see, I guess, how his testing goes, but it does seem like one of those guys that'll probably go overlooked, but wouldn't be surprised if he ends up like having a very nice professional career.
Yeah. So keeping on a football note, right? Literally, I can't talk. Keeping it on a football note real quick. We were talking a little bit about Dylan Morris before we went over to Phoenix. Are there any final thoughts you have on Dylan Morris, expectations for the Washington transfer quarterback coming over from one purple and gold school to the other purple and gold school, expected to be, or I guess in our minds, expected to be the QB1 come August?
It's going to be interesting to see this team. I think they're going to have a crazy turnover. They lost a ton. I still expect their expectations to be rather insane. Like I would anticipate, like, if they don't hit 9-10 wins contending for the Sun Belt East, fans are going to be like frustrated because of what the recent teams have done, and the fact that the non-conference schedule is pretty manageable, and the West, the crossover games on paper seem like they could be manageable again as well. So for Dylan Morris, like, I think you're looking at a guy who's, if you're contending for the East, you'd want him to be contending for like Conference Player of the Year, or at the very least, I would say one of the 3 most efficient quarterbacks in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, Pac-12 honorable mention in 2020. Had a little bit of an off 2021. When he was a starter, he averaged 1 interception per game, which is about 0.2 more per game than what JMU quarterbacks average. But I was looking at Dylan Morris lowlights, and you'd be shocked how hard it is to find lowlights of players, because why would they post them? And so, like,
be sweet.
trying to go through, like, when I was putting together the Dylan Morris breakdown over on our YouTube, JMU Sports News on YouTube, I was going like game by game, like finding those like random highlight accounts that post like full games. So I would scroll through and try and catch some of the interceptions. There were a few that were just like bad picks. Like, you just didn't have the perfect placement. A few of them were like his offensive line was absolutely abysmal, and he would just have pressure in his face, and he probably shouldn't have, but like he'd throw it off his back foot, or he just was like a highly pressured pick. And there were other ones where it went off of receivers' hands into the defense. So while he had 15 over his 15 career starts, that's not necessarily the best thing in the world, but in a system that I think will be more advantageous to a quarterback with a coaching staff that probably will not be fired mid-season, Dylan Morris should, especially 2 years with Kalen DeBoer, 2 years under Michael Penix, I think will take a massive step forward. And like you said, I think he'll be a contender for Sun Belt Player of the Year and be one of the most efficient quarterbacks because of what Phoenix said as well with Tajee Hudson, Dollison, Maxwell Moss, Yamir Knight. They all should be solid choices if they take that anticipated next step.
Yeah. And no disrespect to the Sun Belt, but there's a difference between Old Dominion and, a Pac-12 defense.
And the best other quarterback in the Sun Belt last year was Ryan Aguilar of App State, who has like it was Jordan McLeod was like tier 1. And then the tier under him was Ryan Aguilar, and then another tier. But even Aguilar had like serious issues. Even McLeod at times had issues in his game. Mr. Levy said Jordan McLeod could still stay ? I think this possibility was brought up in Chesney's first press conference. McLeod does not have a landing spot within the transfer portal musical chairs as it stands right now. He could, in theory, still stay if an offer was extended to him, but his quarterback scholarship has likely been filled by either J.C. Evans or Dylan Morris, and McLeod probably will want to be a starter somewhere, and he likely won't be a starter if he comes back.
Yeah, I'd be shocked because he'll want to start. He was the Sun Belt Player of the Year, right? He's probably wants another good year, and he could, like some of these other guys, right, could flirt with the NFL and a pro career, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So Dylan Morris should be pretty solid for JMU next year. I think the bigger key, I'm more worried or anxious about how the wide receiver room develops more than Dylan Morris himself. Are there any key upcoming dates in the portal coming up?
Classes start tomorrow, January 16th. So I imagine if you're transferring in for the spring, you're already locked in. You've already said so. And I assume anyone else who transfers would join like for summer and fall would be my guess, unless somebody's sort of silently committed or something like that. But hopefully they do at Chesney something or other in the next few weeks. We get a little more detail in the class and his thoughts on it, what he's going to do with the remaining scholarships. Yeah.
So we'll switch gears here, going over to men's basketball. We'll go on to the hardwood, kind of break down the weekend that was. And then I have a few points I want to bring up and talk about as kind of just overarching issues I see with this team. Dukes, they destroyed South Alabama on Thursday. Sorry, I was reading a comment from Ben. Jordan McLeod to William. I don't know. Is this confirmed? Sorry, this is terrible podcasting. He says Jordan McLeod to William and Mary. I don't know what he's talking about.
Probably a joke.
There's a lot of weird.
You didn't give him any love on. I don't know what you say.
Well, there's a lot of like slashes.
That's cool.
All right. So JMU men's basketball. We'll focus on that and head back to what Ben was trying to say in the listener question portion of the podcast later on. Dukes destroy South Alabama. It made me have hope. They shot the ball exceptionally well from deep. They had 36 3-point attempts, and I think they hit it like a 35% clip, an 89-55 win in their return to the AUBC. Did you have any like big takeaways from this game?
JMU is 1-2 in its last 3 games with a point differential of plus 20 because they beat South Alabama so bad.
That's awesome. Then on Saturday, the game we were at, JMU struggled to shoot in a 59-55, what you could say was a college basketball game. Just ugly, grinded out. Great environment in the bank, but a tough loss. What stood out to you the most about this App State L?
A lot of things. One, I love this JMU team. Didn't play well, but they're the best team by far that they've had since I started following the program about a decade ago. It's not even close.
Damn, you're
Right?
old.
They're very good. They play well. They got to shoot a little better, whatever. But like they're solid down low. They got some guys who can get to the rim. They got some length. Do they have some liabilities? Yes, because they're like a mid/low major. So it kind of makes sense. The other thing that stood out, App State's good. Like App State has a good team. And I think JMU fans have sort of pushed that aside where they're like, can't be losing to App. Well, Auburn did. And I know it's different location and things like that, but like Mountaineers have a nice team.
Yeah.
And my biggest takeaway is that I despise this schedule more than anything in the world because this is a really good team that's capable of doing a lot of things. And they went through the entire month of December without playing anyone who's remotely competent at basketball. So I think they go through these stretches where they're good, but they're probably not ever going to reach like what their ceiling could be if they consistently played good teams, because they have games like South Alabama and some of these other teams where they show up and they win by 30 or 20 or 30 because they're that talented, that good. They play with that level of cohesion. But like when they face an App State or some other quality teams, they look a little bit disjointed and like they're not fully ready for some of that. And I think it's because they played a schedule that hasn't completely prepared them. So I hope some other Sunbelt teams other than App can give them another test, because I could see them going into the Sunbelt tournament looking really good. But even if you get through that, you're going to get in the NCAA tournament not having played many like real teams. So I think I'm just a little bit frustrated because like it's an awesome team, and it kind of sucks that there's like, I don't know, you play a cool game to start the season against Michigan State, you play App State twice, and then you have 28 other games.
The key to getting a better non-conference schedule is you have to have a good net at the end of the year so that you become a quad 1 or a quad 2 loss, depending on where the game's played. And that's how you can start signing these 2-for-1 deals with other conferences, because people trash VCU and the A10 teams because they won't play JMU, which is totally fair, but they're not playing JMU because their name is JMU. They're not playing JMU because for the past decade, they've been a quad 4 team that plays really well at home. And you can go in there and all of a sudden you have a quad 4 loss on your resume. And the A10 gave direction to their teams. Hey, don't schedule these teams. Don't schedule potential quad 4Ls because we want to maximize the number of teams we're getting into the conference, getting in the NCAA tournament. And so JMU right now is around 63 in the net. If they can hold that same area through the end of the season and finish in the top 75 of the net, that's almost as big as an at-large bid, because then all of a sudden you're getting 2-for-1s. You're getting better and better opportunities in your non-conference schedule moving forward.
It should help. Can I hit you with a couple questions here?
Yeah, I also have a few takes. So
go.
Yeah.
You want to do takes or do you want me to throw you some questions?
Let's rotate. I'll start with a take.
Okay, go.
So JMU really did struggle to shoot in that App State game, and they struggled to shoot this entire Sun Belt run. And it was really worrying to me because I was having flashbacks to last year where it seemed like every time they lost, they were shooting sub 20%. And every time they lose this year, you see the tweet, JMU shot a season low 20% from behind the arc. And it's just like, oh my goodness, what's happening? This was a 42% shooting team in non-conference. Well, Bennett, I dug up some numbers, and you tell me if this is a little worrisome. Dating back to the start of last season, when JMU's first year in the Sun Belt, the Dukes are shooting 49.35% in non-conference play from the floor as a whole. In Sun Belt play, that falls down to 43% from the field. That is a 6.29% difference. And then from deep, they're shooting just a shade under 40%. And in Sun Belt play, which is 15 games over the last 2 seasons, they're shooting 28% from behind the arc.
That's bad.
Can you tell me why that is such a I'd expect a little bit of a fall off because they are playing, like you said, a bad non-conference schedule, but should I expect an 11.15% drop off between non-conference and conference play?
I think last year's team had some like volume shootery guys who just straight up weren't that efficient. I think this year's team has only played 5 games. So I'd give them a little more sample. I think they'll get it back. I think they're a better shooting team than last year would be my lean.
But is 5 games not a big enough sample? They're shooting 24% this season. Their best shooting performance was against Texas State, where they went 9 of 24. Is 5 games not a large enough sample to tell me that they're not good from behind the arc in Sun Belt play?
I think they'll turn that around and have some better shooting performances than they've had.
They had 7 games in non-conference play shooting better than 37.5%.
That's what makes me think they'll turn it around. I think they've got good shooters. Michael Green's on an epic cold streak. Friedel has kind of been hot or cold. I say this every year, and I'll continue to say it. Would not mind Julian Wooden shooting more shots.
Yeah, Julian Wooden is when he would take his shots against App State, it really helped the offense. Okay, what's your question?
Here's my question. Saw this from a number of JMU fans who I think part of this is just frustration after the loss. Terrence Edwards is either going to win Conference Player of the Year or he'll be in the top like few candidates. He's probably like a first-team All-Sun Belt guy. Was he trying to do too much in some of the recent games?
Yes.
Do you think that?
I forgot I wanted to call out these people. We were leaving the bank, and some guys behind us asked us what was going to be on the podcast this week. I think this is the anti-take of what they were wanting us to talk about, because they asked if it was a Terrence Edwards legacy game if they had won. No, Terrence Edwards was 9 of 21 and was not put in the best positions to succeed, I think, by the coaching staff. Byington said it in the press conference that he doesn't think they really harped on a few key coaching perspectives throughout that 24, 36 hours between the South Alabama game and the App State game. And I think that kind of showed with Edwards' game. I'm not putting the blame on him. He is that type of player. He's going to take 20 shots from the floor. But at times there were a few questionable things that I think the coaching staff needed to really harp on and make sure that he wouldn't do. For example, getting the big man, Abson, I think his name is, number 21, who's 6'9" with a 7'5" wingspan. He got him ISO'd in the corner and called not just any old ISO, the type of ISO where you're waving off the players to push him to the other side of the court, and you take a contested 23-footer. Like that's something the coaching staff has to get him not to do.
That was a tough one. Definitely a questionable shot there. Do you think that it's a long-term concern? Because he does create his own shot, take some contested ones near the rim especially, and make them a lot, which is part of what makes him a good player. Are you concerned long-term about, because he's not the only guy who played a little bit of hero ball the last few games where they kind of try to ISO guys.
Am I concerned about the hero ball mentality with the team overall?
Do you think like they'll change that, or do you think we're going to be here in March talking about a Sun Belt tournament loss because guys are like clearing the floor and trying to take step backs?
I think they'll figure it out. I think they'll understand it. TJ Bickerstaff didn't practice, I think, 2 days this week going into the South Alabama game. Yeah. And then against South Alabama, rolled his ankle and had to leave the game and was out of the game for a little bit and then ended up coming back and everything was fine. But in the post game, it was revealed that he was battling an illness all week. And then he was also kind of battling with that ankle injury. So I think that might be why you saw him take a slight step back and Terrence took a slight step forward. I think if Bickerstaff can get back into the fold, is healthy, and that continues to grow, I think JMU will be just fine. But I think Bickerstaff's not rising to the occasion against App State is the reason they lost. And I'm not saying that's because of his fault. I think because there was an injury in play and a sickness in play.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got another take?
I do, and it has to do with MG3, Michael Green III. You mentioned it earlier. I guess it's kind of a question back to you that's kind of a take, but do we have a point guard controversy? Like Michael Green over the last 3 games is, I believe, 0 of 19 over the last 4 games. Since December 19th, he hasn't hit 2 or more threes in a single game.
Is that from 3?
Yes, sorry. He has not hit more than 2 threes in a game. Prior to that, he did it at a quite often clip, and he's 0 of 19 over his last 4 games, and he's coming off of a season low 17 minutes. In contrast, Xavier Brown was the only Duke against App State to hit more than 2 3 or hit more than 1 3. He was the only one with multiple threes, and his play on the defensive end was electric, and he was the energy guy. This is what Mark Byington had to say after the game when asked if there's a point guard controversy in Harrisonburg.
You've kind of been experimenting a lot with different lineups this season, and you look at a guy like Xavier and the impact he's had off the bench tonight. Have you kind of thought at all about potentially maybe throwing him in the starting lineup a little bit more often as the season has gone on and he's just performed so well?
No, we don't talk about those things right now. The guys who play, and he's been playing well. He's an important part of the team, just like everybody else.
I will say I don't think there is a point guard controversy, but Xavier Brown is starting to kind of make some noise. I think Michael Green, once he gets back on track, will be elite, but he's in a historically bad cold streak right now.
Jackson Hefner with the Breeze had some great questions. He asked that one. Quality question. Byington deflected the heck out of it, which was interesting. Michael Green scored in double figures in 7 of JMU's first 10 games. The last 7 games, he has not scored in double figures once, with the most points he scored in that stretch being 7 points on 2 occasions. 2 of the games, he's only had 2 points.
Yeah, not a great stretch from MG3 right here. I do think things will come around. The coaching staff clearly has shown at least some sort of faith in him because he still has the green light. He is still attempting multiple threes per game. And I think the reason he didn't play a lot down the stretch against App State was I think Xavier Brown was just playing too well defensively to take him out.
Yeah, he played well. He's also a little bit taller. There was a couple where, and I'm not going to know the name, but it was 11 on App State. One of their guards had a little more size, and he would kind of just drive Green down and make some like shots in the paint. I think they flipped a little for defense, which is we've kind of known all year, right? That Green is a better offensive player, I think, than a defensive player. Not that he's a bad defender, but his strength is he facilitates well and can knock down threes. So if he's not knocking down threes, they'll toy with stuff. But yeah, I think he'll get out of the slump. They got a bunch of guys right now who are just kind of in a cold stretch. And starting the year, they were shooting kind of everyone out of their minds. They had like 5 guys shooting over 40%, which is
this is what they did last year too, though. And last year they finished shooting from deep. Got my spreadsheet.
They're worse last year.
They shot 42% from deep in non-conference play last year. They shot 32% from deep in conference play last year.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Green.
And now we're seeing the same pattern develop this year. And we've already heard in one excuse of the physicality is impacting them. Well, you knew what the physicality was coming into this year. You played in this conference last year.
I don't fully get that one.
And to top it all off, this team is 40th in the nation in 2-point percentage, according to KenPom, which is 5th best in the Sun Belt. And they rank 1st in the league in 2 points made. They rank 1st in the league in 2-point percentage. and they're third in the league in 2 points attempted. Like, I don't get this team.
I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be fine. It's another
Okay.
one where, like,
I'm just worried, I guess.
you got some guys.
Donovan Gregory is 11.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he's a stud. They got a great
Thank you,
run.
Mr. Levy. They're absolutely good.
I like App a lot. But like Julian Wooden, you look at his game against Division I teams, he's shooting 63% from 2, 34% from 3, and he's like an 89% free throw shooter on the year. And he took 4 shots in the game.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any, like, he's got to force himself a little more, I think, because he's a very gifted scorer. And you see some people struggling to score. And then there's one where he just like catches the ball, stares his guy down, does a jab, and then pulls up and nails a 3 late in the game. And it's like, please, man, like let Wooden fire up some shots.
It's funny what Phoenix was saying in the interview where he's like, I'm not the type of guy that's going to demand the ball. I'm going to play my role in the offense. Julian Wooden is like the exact same. I'm going to play my role when I get it. No, Julian, I need you to like sometimes go back to the huddle and be like, Coach, I'm red hot. Draw me up some plays. Like coming out of timeouts, it would have been nice to see Wooden get a look.
It would have been, and I think
wouldn't been. It wouldn't been.
They got to get a little more consistent overall.
Come on, man. That was a great pun.
I know. I was sorry. I was deep over here on my screen. I'm looking at Noah Friedel 3-point shooting stats.
But yes, I think this team, and I think we're having like 2 different just flows of consciousness right now with how we're taking this all out, which is fine. I think this team needs to, it feels like at times they want to play outside in. I really think, am I wrong in thinking that? Your eyes gave me a look.
No, I'm processing. Outside in, meaning they prefer threes?
Like almost like they want to get their offense going from outside, from threes, even long range, mid range jumpers, and then go in. Where looking back now, we were questioning the App State game plan. I think that was the right game plan. I just don't think they executed it well.
See, here's my thing. I'm not even sure that was their game plan to attack the rim. It sounded like Byington was kind of frustrated with them attacking the rim and not shot faking.
That's right. He did say that. He wanted more shot fakes. And I guess, yeah.
I think App blocked 7 shots. Like, that's frustrating. They weren't drawing a ton of fouls in there. And then they were also cold from 3. It was kind of a perfect storm of bad things. But the defense, so this is kind of shocking, right? We talked previously about how in Ken Palm, they were like,
they're good on defense now.
Yeah, they were like 30th offensively and like 115th defensively. It's now 74th offensively, 82nd defensively. They've made some strides there, which is interesting. But here's my last question for you. They led this game late, couldn't score in the last 4 minutes. If they grind out like a 2-point win, are we having like any of these conversations about like?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not. We're talking about how great this team is, and it's at large chances.
See, that's why I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to get the shooting back on track. I think they're playing better defense, which should be super encouraging.
I think my issue is, and I might speak, I don't want to speak for some fans, but I feel like some fans had this same sentiment. I let myself buy into the at-large conversation. I let myself think this team had at-large chances, legit at-large chances. And looking back, that wasn't correct. And I think that skewed my expectations for this season. I saw what FAU did a year ago, and I thought to myself, why couldn't that be JMU? Why can't the Dukes go on some historic run and do something they've never done before in the history of their program and do it for the first time this year? I think this is a Sun Belt winning caliber team. I think this team, they've got an uphill battle, a big time uphill battle to win the Sun Belt regular season with how they've started this year. But I think they have the caliber to win the regular season, and I think they especially have the caliber to win the Sun Belt tournament. And that was the expectation coming into the season. I was foolish enough to buy into this at large, which is why it makes this loss hurt so much more.
Yeah, I think the at large is essentially dead.
The at large is gone. I mean, you'd have to win out, like literally win out.
Yeah. So that's tough. It's tough. The schedule's bad. The schedule, frankly, is just very bad, which means they're going to end with a lot of wins. I think they'll figure it out, but it's tough.
Daniel Merriman said, football has us thinking crazy in the Sun Belt. Yeah, maybe football skewed it a little. Maybe just continuing to win in football, and then basketball starts with an upset against Michigan State and like a historic comeback against Kent State really had me buying in. Yeah,
They should be, though. They should, resource-wise, commitment-wise to basketball, they should kind of run this league.
Yeah, and I think they're on pace for that. I think we also have to remind ourselves, Bennett, you and me, we are just a few years removed from the lowest of low. We were one of the worst, and I try not to use we too much to like make it seem like this is a fancy podcast, but I'm talking to you right now, Bennett. We were one of the worst teams in the entire nation like 4 years ago.
3-11 in Ken Palm in 2019, 2020 season, Lou Rose
Yeah.
last year.
Yes. Like,
That's bad.
we are not far from being the laughing stock of college basketball. We lost to the Citadel at home.
They lost a lot of home games.
yeah, they did. The Citadel one really sticks out to me because it was so embarrassing. Coppin State at home. I mean, this team is not long removed from just being abysmal.
Also, another good news: home games the rest of the season. You're going to have the students back.
They should win out at home.
All right, if you say so.
That's what I think. But that brings us to this week's three-notched weekly preview. JMU continues their homestand after their 1-1 weekend. This weekend, Wednesday, Saturday games this week, right?
I think so. No, Thursday.
Wednesday next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. What? Yep. Wednesday that next week.
Thank you. So Thursday, Saturday this week, starting things off on Thursday, the ULM Warhawks, coached by Keith Richard, who's in his 14th season as the head man. They come into the bank. The Warhawks bring a 4-11 record, 0-5 in Sun Belt play, and they're 327th in Ken Palm. They're in the midst of an 8-game losing streak, and their last win came against champion Christian. They don't have a lot of great guys, but keep an eye on Savian Gallion. He's their best offensive player. But the guy they use on 25% of offensive possessions, Nika Metskircheverveli, is kind of their big. Okay, the last name is spelled M-E-T.
I saw it.
I'm spelling it out for the podcast listeners. His last name is Metskchvarish. That's hard.
Nika. We'll call him Nika.
Nika. He used a lot for ULM. ULM terrible offensively. They turn it over at a high clip. They're also terrible defensively. This is going to be a game where JMU needs to find their rhythm and try and use this game as a jumping off point going into Saturday's game.
ULM sucks. Like, they don't do anything well with respect to ULM. They're terrible. So this is one that, like JMU should absolutely boat race them. They played Houston to open the season. They scored 31 points, which is not good. You never want to do that. They get blown out most games. They lose most of their games against D1 teams by double digits. So it's just not a very good basketball team.
Then on Saturday, it's going to be a potentially great Sunbelt game as Marshall, the 9-9 Thundering Herd, come in with a 4-1 conference record. They're 189 in Ken Palm, coached by Dan D'Antoni in his 10th season. This year, Cam Crawford, a 6'5 sophomore, is their most used player. He comes off the bench for them, but he is used a lot when he comes in. Nate Martin, the 6'8 junior, has been amazing offensively this year, has 120 offensive rating, which is, I believe, in the top 400 in the nation, which is a really good benchmark to have for the Thundering Herd. Their offense is going to have to find a rhythm against JMU's defense. Marshall's offense isn't necessarily great. Their best offensive option is the three-point shot, and that's been JMU's best area defended on the court. And then on the offensive side for JMU, they're the 40th best team in the nation with a 54.7% shooting percentage inside the arc. And what I was saying earlier, they're one of the best teams in the entire Sun Belt at shooting inside the 2-point line. So they're really going to have to play well against a Marshall defense that is 146th in the nation in defending the two. What's your expectation for that Marshall game that could have large implications, kind of like the App State Saturday game? This could have large implications on how the Sun Belt shakes out going out.
Should be a good crowd. Brian Reese will be there getting loud, so it'll be an engaged atmosphere. Marshall plays fast, so this is like going to be fun to watch because both teams like to go up and down. The number one thing I'm looking for JMU in this 2-game set of games, control the pace, right? This is one that I feel like against App State, they kind of played to App State's slower defensive style and just let that game happen like that.
Has there ever been a game where JMU imposes their style on the opponent?
Not against like quality teams, at least, but I think these teams are like not good enough. And Marshall wants to play that pace, but can't actually score as well as they usually do. So they play fast, but they're not efficient. Both these games, and ULM plays a little bit slower, but they're so bad that they can't really dictate pace. If you're JMU, like impose your will, play fast, get out in transition, which makes it a lot easier to play in a rhythm. And if you're in like a shooting slump, it's easier if you're running down the floor, catch and shoot. You don't have a lot of time to think instead of these contested half-court, slower possessions. So I think if you're JMU, play a little bit quicker, play your style and sort of impose that. And if the Dukes can do that, I think they can start to get themselves back on track. But I think they need to view themselves like the type of potential, mid, low major power that they can be this year and really impose their style on somebody for the first time in a couple weeks.
Yeah, our friend over at Mid-Major Madness, Nick Lorenzen, dropped the Dukes pretty far in his mid-major top 25. They went from top 15 to 22nd. So they got to get back up there.
They got to get back up there. You want to be in Nick's good graces.
Yeah, harsh but fair. It was a harsh but fair ruling. So what's your 2-0 weekend? Is a 2-0 weekend? Is this a must-have 2-0 weekend?
Yeah, if you go 2-2 in this homestand, I think you're feeling pretty bummed.
Yeah, because I think you're going 2-2 to finish out the season. We'll get to that later in the year. Moving on over to women's basketball, they dropped their first Sun Belt game of the season. They went 1-1 on the weekend. Boy, what a Thursday game it was, though. Peyton McDaniel drops 33, but like not to be outdone. Over on the other side, Dominique Davis dropped 33 too. It was just an ultra exciting back and forth heavyweight bout between those two players.
That was a phenomenal game, really fun one to watch. I would say JMU is probably not as good defensively as they've been some previous years, which kind of makes for like sneaky, entertaining games. They've been
so good offensively now.
Yeah, they've been fun to watch the last few games. Lost to Troy by 13, so that was a tough one for them because they were in that game in the second half, and Troy sort of pulled away. But pretty decent start to Sun Belt play. I think they've got to feel reasonably pleased so far.
If I'm not mistaken, they should be atop the Sun Belt standings.
That sounds right.
I don't think there's an undefeated Sun Belt team remaining.
Who could say?
I thought you had your screen in front of you. My fault. All right. What's their ceiling with average defense but above average offense?
Marshall's 5-0. So okay. There is one undefeated. Marshall's hanging in there. And then you've got ODU, JMU, and Troy are all 4-1. I think JMU they've got ODU on Saturday. That's a doubleheader, by the way. Did not realize that originally and then picked up on that. So they play ODU and women's hoops, which would be an awesome game at 2:00. And then at 6:00, they play the men play Marshall, both at home. So they got a little home doubleheader. Is the Thursday one a doubleheader too?
I think so.
Yeah, 5:00, and then where they play like 8 then.
Yeah.
Probably. So a couple of doubleheaders this week, which will be fun for fans in the area. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're okay, but their ceiling for me would still just be like winning the Sun Belt. I don't think they're as elite as they have been in previous seasons, but they're similarly like tough and scrappy and competitive. So
yeah, they're fun though. Like you said, the defense not being elite makes these games kind of fun.
Yeah, they should be fun to watch the rest of the year.
And that brings us to News or Snooze, presented by Christopher William Jewelers. Bennett will give me 3 quotes. I'll decide if they're newsworthy or snoozeworthy.
All right. First quote. This is from Mark Byington. We went into the game knowing that we had to play off 2 feet and knowing that we had to shot fake. And I didn't do a good enough job coaching and getting that message across to our guys. That was what we emphasized, and we didn't do it.
Newsworthy, very newsworthy, because it makes sense on what
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.